talking about the bodies that govern the regulations related to aviation industry. So today's focus will be, I'll be first finishing a couple of slides which are related to the SWOT analysis, which we discussed yesterday, specific to the situation of Indian aviation industry right now. And then we will talk about the regulators and key stakeholders, because it's all important in the overall perspective of management of airports, design as well as management as well as operation, day-to-day operation of the airports. So we are getting to that aspect where we'll now discuss the bodies that are responsible for rules and regulations pertaining to aviation industry. Prior to that, just to wind up what we have been discussing yesterday, the SWOT analysis specific to aviation industry, the strengths and opportunities. The strengths have to be made use of, and opportunities have to be tapped so that the objective of or the goals of the industry can be met. So a successful progress requires making use of the strengths as well as capturing or tapping all the potential opportunities that are ahead. And what we have seen is that depending on some of the numbers and the growths and also growth projections, Indian civil aviation can have a phenomenal growth, because it has several factors which are in favor which are in favor both internally and externally. So if the internal factors which are made use of, and if the external factors are tapped into, then there can be a phenomenal growth in the near future in the industry segment. And also this also requires that matching and converting. Actually, matching and converting refers to how you make use of, or how you address, or how you mitigate the weaknesses and threats. So that's also an integral part of the SWOT analysis. That is, strengths and opportunities have to be matched, and at the same time, weaknesses and threats have to be converted to opportunities. That is that requires a strategic approach from the management to say particularly when referring to threats. Some of them can be tapped, or some of them can be converted to opportunities, so that the organizational strength can be improved and those opportunities can be tapped. Weaknesses, most of the times, they will have to be addressed in such a way that they can in future lead to tapping of further opportunities. So those are the specific requirements of the industry from the perspective of SWOT analysis, so that the strengths and opportunities can be made use of, and weaknesses and threats can be successfully addressed. Now, if you look at some of the challenges, actually, they pros, threats, as well as weaknesses. And when I list it here, I am just listing them in the non-COVID scenario, or other than COVID. COVID, I would rather give as a topic for discussion or presentation by you. But then so all other industries as well. So if you keep COVID as a what are some of the challenges that the Indian aviation industry as of today is facing? Probably one of the most important factors is that, which I mentioned earlier also, all the reports, surveys, studies, financial analysis indicate that the industry is still struggling to make profits. The revenue is increasing, the traffic is increasing, the volume of business is increasing, But when it comes to profits, many of the companies are still in red, and that's partly why companies like Jet Airways, which were sort of ruling Indian skies for some time, had to shut down their shop. So the growth in traffic, is not always translating to a growth in profit. So this is something which has to be addressed for a sustainable growth of the business segment. Now, the financial crisis is primarily attributed, of course, always the ever growing fuel price and high airport charges. The airports we know are growing in their amenities, facilities, infrastructure, etc. But then the user fee associated with the airports will be discussing about airport user fee, etc. Later as a source of revenue for airports. But then the increased levels of airport charges is also impacting the profitability of airline companies. Then high maintenance costs. This also was discussed earlier. The maintenance and overhauling. This requires a lot of parts which are sort of imported, and the maintenance cost remains to be very high. And many times they are passed on to the passengers in the sense through increased ticket pricing, which in turn is not a sustainable option in the long term. So I mean, a sustainable option this, it makes the tickets dearer, and which will in turn discourage people from using air transport. So that it's not the ideal way to contain the cost. Now, other factors are, these are some of the systemic deficiencies which have to be addressed. In addition to that, you also have actually many of the companies also have to blame themselves for financial mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, and also malpractices, and then willful defaulters, as they call, and their misadventures, as obviously what we have seen in the case of the fall of Kingfisher Airlines, and I guess to some extent Jet Airways also were prey to their own mistakes. So there is a lot of financial malpractices and mismanagements which are happening within the organizations, within the airline companies, which are also having a strong negative impact on the overall progress of or growth of the industry. In fact, fall of companies like Kingfisher and Jet Airways, considering the volume of business that they were having, it cannot be just seen as an individual loss or individual drawback of certain companies. So it's in considering the volume that they were handling, I guess we should consider it as a major drawback for the progress or the growth of Indian aviation industry as such, Indian air transport industry as such. Okay, so that is where we stop the discussion on SWOT analysis. Now we move on to the bodies that are in charge of regulation and the other stakeholders of aviation industry. Please be clear about the importance of this, because all these are integrally related to the operation or the management of airports. So we are sort of going to clarify sort of categories 6 some people call it as 6 pillars of Indian aviation. Here we'll just look at them one by one. First and foremost, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which sort of controls the whole aviation industry scenario. Being a democratic country, the policy decisions should be under the ministry, and that's how the the most important role that the Ministry of Civil Aviation holds. It should ensure that all the pillars, all the stakeholders, all the contributors, all the regulators are made to function properly so that the structure of the aviation industry is maintained well and it progresses. And timely revision of civil aviation policies. When you say civil aviation policies, the civil aviation ministry will have interfacing or dependence on other ministries like home ministry or financial ministry, etc., the ministry of finance, etc., particularly related to policy decisions like foreign direct investment and stuff like that. So it's a responsibility of the Ministry of Civil Aviation to interface with other industries, other ministries, to represent the and to safeguard the interests of the civil aviation segment. And safety and air safety and finance. Both these are important, that is to avoid issues related to safety and financial malpractices. This all have to be all the processes, the implementation of policies, regulations, etc., have to be closely examined. And the ministry should ensure there is a conducive atmosphere for the anticipated growth of which can make sure that there's the growth of the sector. At present, the Minister for Aviation, as you would know, is Jyotiraditya Scindia. We have a fairly youthful leadership in that sense. And the Minister for the Minister for State, not sure whether with independent charge or otherwise, is Dr. V.K. Singh. Retired. I guess he retired from Air Force. He had a very illustrative career, even in the previous ministry. So they are pioneering the Indian Ministry of Civil Aviation. And if you look at the website, apparently the Ministry of Civil Aviation is also keeping a tab, keeping a close watch on, say, the regular day-to-day functioning of the aviation industry in terms of departure of flights, departing this one, etc., the delays or the percentage of timely arrivals, departures, etc., which probably is good because it shows that it's all getting monitored at the highest level. So the screenshot that I've kept there is that of the Ministry of Civil Aviation, the space that you come across, and apparently they are showing the number of flights that are, and there are more details on the timely arrivals, departures, etc. So probably they are keeping a close watch on the day-to-day function. Now, reporting to the Ministry of Civil Aviation is probably the most important regulatory body, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA. We keep seeing the statements from DGCA in reports whenever there is any incidents related to air traffic or unfortunate accidents, etc. They are the people who are supposed to form the policy or form the regulations, ensure their implementation, and if there is any violation, this is the body which is supposed to take care of the inquiries and give the report to the ministry. There was a move from the government to rename this Civil Aviation Authority a few years back. I don't think they have proceeded with that. I just retained that term there because at some point of time there were news coming that DGCA will be renamed or reorganized as Civil Aviation Authority. Probably you say following the American model, because they have something called Federal Aviation Authority in the US. But then probably that has not progressed. But then I don't know whether the government has given up on that. But that was a move which was reported in the newspapers. So as of now, what we have is as the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, which is the regulator that is empowered to ensure compliance with rules and also to facilitate and promote civil aviation. So they are the ones who deal with the safety issues. They are the ones who are responsible for air transports within India and also international transports that are from through India, and all regulations that that relate to the safety, airworthiness standards, etc. of the aircraft are under the purview of DGC, and they are supposed to coordinate with the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. We'll be discussing next, actually, in the next session, the next class, about ICAO, which is the international body. It's like which is the body that should ensure the adherence rules and regulations at an international level across nations. So DGCA has to interface with the ICAO to make sure that the Indian companies or the domestic aviation industry is in line with the, or rather is following the international norms which are applicable. And then the another part of it is which is purely focused on the security, the safety and security of civil flights. Is this also is reporting to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, the Board of Civil Aviation Security, BCAS. So they are also responsible for laying down standards and measures that deal with the safety of flights. So between these two bodies, DGCA and BCAS, which report to Ministry of Civil Aviation, the safety of operation and the rules, the policies, and the adherence to the policies all have to be ensured. Okay, then we have the Airport Authority of India. All the airports are governed by this particular authority. It's a statutory authority, and it's again an autonomous body which is also reporting to the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And Airport Authority of India, as is very obvious, is responsible for improving the infrastructure, maintaining, improving the infrastructure, airport infrastructure, anticipating the needs, managing the growth, and also ensuring the safe day-to-day operation of all airports. At present, I hope this number is up to date. I've just taken it from some survey. The total number of airports that we have is 137, out of which 23 are international airports, 81 are domestic airports. From Indian perspective, probably it's a high number, but then when you consider more advanced economies, a total, in fact, I will check this number later. I hope it is correct, but then I have some doubts whether it is up to date. Anyway, in any case, the number is much higher than what it used to be several years back. But the number of airports that we have in comparison to other advanced economies is probably much less. Anyway, it's all come under the administration of Airport Authority of India. And they also are required to provide constant attention to airspace management. That is ensuring the safety of air traffic, as well as minimizing congestion in airspace, and also both in all the routes and also in areas close to the terminal. So that's another stakeholder. And then a very important and very obvious stakeholder of Indian aviation industry are the scheduled airlines. So we have several of them. Thanks to the liberalization and globalization that we discussed earlier in 1990s, there's a host of companies operating in the private space of scheduled airlines. And as of now, we can consider it as a free market competitive environment because facilitates capital investment and operation subject to the rules and regulations of those. And then the top management of each of them is responsible for adherence to the rules and regulations that are laid out by DGC and other bodies. So the scheduled airlines are another important stakeholders of the whole flight. The organizations that provide pilot training. We have several of them. Probably the most important one is the Government Aviation Training Institute, the T. And of course, requirements of that is very obvious to prepare or to make trained task force that can take charge of duties of pilots. And then, so giving pilot license and updating it from time to time, conducting the regulated tests in bit, and then endorsing, etc., etc. So this is another important factor, important contributor to the sustenance of the aviation industry, and making sure that we have required task force that in the pilot or rather in the segments related to the and then closely related to that is also maintenance, repair and overhaul, MRO. MRO. We have actually, as we have mentioned earlier, dependent on parts, dependent on other countries for many of the parts. But then maintenance is an important part of the day-to-day operation. And so MRO, as they call it, is an integral part of it. So service providers who focus on providing the MRO service are also major stakeholders of the aviation industry. Surveys show that again, those charts and news, etc., they have just taken from various sources, show that there is an increase again in the MRO market in India. You can see that particular histogram on the lower left-hand corner, where the values in million is shown of the overall MRO business, shooting from 620 in 2010 to all the way to 254 million in 2020, and is forecasted to be almost double in 2025 to 4,387 million. So yeah, it's all mainly because of the increase in the air traffic, increase in the number of players, increase in the number of aircraft that are operating in Indian airspace. So MRO, the maintenance, repair and overhaul is also another stakeholders of the Indian aviation industry. So from the perspective of the operation, so what we have listed here is, of course, I have left out some of the important stakeholders because they are too obvious, or we will be discussing more about them later. For example, the passengers. For any industry, the customer mass has to be as an important stakeholder. So passengers undoubtedly is a major stakeholders of the are the major stakeholders of the aviation industry. But then what we have here are the segments or bodies which are more which are associated to the which are associated with the operations and rules and regulations of the aviation industry. I'll pause here. Any questions so far? Okay, now we'll leave some time for a discussion. I'll explain about it. But prior to that, I'll just list the topics for the presentation next. And an announcement. Actually, we have one more session. Like any other day, we have on Saturday also we have an afternoon session. But I will not be engaging the next session today. So please make note of it. Uh, uh, this afternoon session today I'm not engaging. So second is I would request these two topics. I would request the respective teams to make note of these two topics for their presentations on Monday between the two sessions, morning and afternoon. We'll probably go by the same order, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first is impact of COVID-19 on aviation industry. Teams 1 and 2. So both the teams can take the same topic. You can give your perspectives. Need not be the same. There can be commonalities, but that is fine. But then between the two, hopefully we'll have the complete picture. So you can independently
What
talk
if we,
about what you.
excuse me, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. What if both teams
Sorry.
combine?
You're saying, sir. You're telling me.
Yes, sir. I'm asking what if both teams did a combined presentation, sir?
That now I guess it's better you have it separately. That's my suggestion. I didn't even think of combining it. Say the reason is you have two independent groups working independently on the same topic. You are more likely to get more points, or you are more likely to have different perspectives come to it. So let's keep it that way. We'll have independent presentations, team 1, team 2. I don't care if there are commonalities. There may be commonalities. That is okay. Doesn't matter, but let's have two different presentations. That's the way that I would prefer it for this topic as well as the next one.
Okay, sir.
Potential post-pandemic recovery plans or ideas for aviation industry. Now, issues may be several, but then what do you think could be some of the ideas how or by which aviation industry can address them or come out of them? Say like can perceive them as weaknesses, threats, etc., and then see suggest ideas that come to your mind. You can take, so I mean, from anywhere. I mean, you can take if people have already aired their views on that, you can take them, you can make use of them, you can add your own insight and then present. So 3 and 4 can take the second topic independently, and 1 and 2 can take the first topic independently. So we will continue with the 4 different presentations between these two topics. Okay, so again, I'm I don't expect that you spend hours together preparing for the presentations, because we are going to have presentations every session. So a reasonable amount of time will be good. So, and then anyway, it's going to be a few slides, and the time of presentation, as we have said, it's going to be 5 to 7 minutes. So you can just keep the scope to that. But then the fresher the ideas or the more genuine insights that you can provide, that will be the better. That's all. So more than that time, the freshness of the ideas will be of importance in the presentations. Okay, now for this class, we have some more time. I'd like to use it for a discussion on SWOT analysis. I will be talking less. I would request you to talk. What I'm going to list here is what are points or issues or whatever related to aviation industry. I would request team by team to classify or to tell me or to tell the group as to what you see is, do you see it as a, where do you classify it? As a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat? And maybe in 1 or 2 sentences, you can explain or justify your answer. We will go team by team, one by 1, 2, 3, etc. So we have several topics. So I would request first team. I have written their point called cyclic economic downturns. Cyclical, that is, we have ups and downs in the domestic economy, going up, down, etc. So cash crunch and other issues related. Then growth of GDP sometimes, but then having negative growth, etc., or the lack of increase in their growth rate and stuff like that. So what do you perceive it as for the aviation industry specifically? Is it a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat? Team one, please. Again, these are not like technical questions and answers. So the answers, as long as you have a logical explanation for them, they should be acceptable. Yeah, please.
Sir, can team 3 answer?
Sorry.
Can
Wait,
team 3 answer?
we'll do first chance to now first chance to team one. We'll go team wise. Team one. So unless they say pass or something like that. Now should I call names? I don't like actually. Team one. Anybody? Adarsh, Akshaya, Ashwin, Giridhar, Aishwarya, Sri
I
Subhanai,
think it is a weakness, sir.
Kevin, Christopher Lay. If none of you respond, I will assume that all of you are absent. By the way, I'll put absence also. Yeah, please.
Sir, I think it is a weakness.
Sorry. It is what?
Weakness, sir.
Okay. Why do you say it's a weakness?
Because, sir, as economical downturns, usually we find that as economy is going downwards, we will see that aviation industry also finds problem whenever there is a downside.
That much is correct. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. But then, is it weakness or a threat? Is it internal to the aviation industry or is it an external factor? That is the domestic economy. Is it internal to the aviation industry? Is it within the control of aviation industry or is it external to it?
External, sir.
It's external. So external factors which are sort of adverse, we classify them as threat. Okay, not weakness. So that's the difference between weakness and threat.
Okay.
Favorable for the industry. That much is correct. But since it is an external factor, we will formally classify it as a threat. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, team three wanted to give an answer. Was it the same, or do you differ in what I am saying?
Sir, I wanted to say it was a threat, so you told the answer.
So it's fine. So we are on the same way. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to the next one. A congestion of airspace. That is having too many aircraft in the space, and which sort of can affect landing, takeoff schedules, can affect the timely departures and also air safety to some extent. Where do we put that? Team two can comment on it. Strength, weakness, opportunities, or threat.
Sir, weakness, sir.
Do you say weakness? Of course, the adversity of it is obvious, but why do you consider it as internal? When we say weakness, it should be internal to the industry, right?
Sir, the problem is because of the industry, sir. It has no external factors.
So I say, can the aviation industry control new entrants? Say if there is a congestion, it means there are too many players, right? So when you are in an industry, you totally cannot have a control over how others are entering into the area, right? Into the business, right?
Yes, sir.
So from that perspective, I am not totally ruling out your answer, but I think probably it can be more appropriately considered as an external factor, because uh, the say when if you're part of the industry, you probably cannot control more players coming to it. I can start an aircraft, I can start an airline company. You cannot stop me. And when many people do that, that results in a lot of aircraft, and there will be clash of schedules, etc. Probably which can all lead potentially to congestion of airspace. So I guess it will be more appropriate. I don't totally rule out your answer, but probably it makes more sense to consider it as an external factor, and hence it can be considered as a threat. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Those differences actually are sort of small, but then we are just trying uh, to make sense of these categories, SW and OT. So wherever it suits better or wherever it suits the best, we will try to put them. That's all. Okay, good safety record. In fact, Indian aviation industry has a very good safety record. We had unfortunate accidents, etc., but they are far and few. How do we classify this? Where does it
Uh,
improve?
Sir,
It's a
so the
strength,
good
sir.
safety record can be classified as a strength of the Indian aviation industry.
It's a strength. Yeah, it's a strength
So,
because it's a favorable factor.
safety is one of the main concerns of aviation industry, because if we are able to carry the passengers safely from one place to the destination, then that we are actually gaining the trust of the people, which so more people will trust on aviation industry, and it can also lead to the economic growth. So it's actually the strength of the aviation industry.
That's perfect. It's a strength, and it's internal to the industry. So it's an internal factor. It's a favorable factor. So we call it as a strength. Yeah. So group 4, LCCs of foreign countries. LCC in the sense low cost carriers of other countries. So, for example, US had that for quite some time, and with FDI, anybody can probably have low cost carriers flying in India. UAE has. I guess they have investment in some Indian companies as well. So, how do Indian aviation's industry would see these? That is, low cost carriers of other countries, other nations. Would it be strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat? Team 4, please. Team 4. Do you find it as favorable or not? First. Vignesh, Yuan, Shashank, some viewers, and Raj, Pridesh, and Nia, and I've not added in the list actually Sahana. She wanted roll number 60. Registered student Junaid, I hope is also online. So any of you can, please. For Rudy is absent. Or? Some response, please. You can. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be. You don't have to burn your brain for that. Just whatever comes to your mind is also fine. Just we'll see. I mean, if it is wrong, we'll try to correct it. That's all. What do you perceive it as?
So can you repeat the question once?
Sir, right? I hope you can see that. LCCs of foreign countries, that is low-cost carriers of other nations. Say, many countries have this low-cost concept. Low-cost concept. I hope it's clear to you. That is having low ticketing, low-priced ticketing, right? So the companies which can afford to play with low airfare, foreign companies.
That
The
will be
presence of them,
opportunity, sir.
if they step into Indian market, is that sorry,
That will be an opportunity, sir.
why do you call it as opportunity?
Because as foreign countries, low-cost carriers comes into Indian aviation, we will have expanded aviation industry because of low cost, high cost. Currently, there are many people who want to use aviation industry, but they cannot. So if this is introduced, it will have a better
Okay. No, I agree. I see what you're trying to say, but then see, we are listing SWOT from the perspective of Indian aviation industry. Okay. So whenever you answer it or whenever you evaluate it, look from the perspective of a person or a stakeholder of Indian aviation industry. Say you are the owner of one of the you consider as answering it from the perspective of the owner of one of the, say, SpiceJet. So you own one SpiceJet. If you see tomorrow that there is a low cost guy from, say, UAE going to start domestic flights in India, and the government is fine because FDI is allowed. So, as the owner of SpiceJet, are you going to be happy about it, or that's my question? Yeah, from
It'll
what
be a
you
threat.
said you'll be happy. It'll be a threat, more appropriately. So why do you say it is a threat? Because
Sir, because it will be direct competition to Indian low-cost carriers, like for
exactly, it
example, Air Arabia.
adds competition. Yeah. It threats to consume part of your customer base, right? So that's the kind of evaluation, because it may be good for, say, as a passenger, for me, it may be good. But we are talking about from the perspective of the industry as a whole. Industry means, say here, what we mean is those who have put their money into it. For a passenger, I may have more options, so I would rather go by that flight. I'll try that if price is lower. But for the players in the industry, they will probably see it as a threat. That's how it should be evaluated. Yeah. So we have one more round of this one. Please make it faster if you can. The first team again, team one can again answer this. Lack of R&D dependence on other countries. We don't have as of now. Hopefully, we'll have it in the next few years. As of now, the R&D infrastructure in aviation technology is sort of nil in India, and we need to depend on other countries, US, Europe, Singapore, etc. Where do you place that?
So this would be a weakness.
It's a weakness, yes. It's internal to the, that is, the absence is internal to the industry. So it would be appropriate to consider it as a weakness. High cost of operation. Team 2. High cost of operation. That includes fuel price, salaries of the crew, airport usage fee, other tax, GST, ST, etc. So all that comes under high costs of operation. Where do we place this? Team 2, please.
Sir, opportunity.
How do you say opportunity? Oh God. High cost of operation for the industry, how will it see it as an opportunity? So if the prices go up, do we all see it as opportunity? Sorry, what is your logic? No, let's see that. Why do you say it's an opportunity?
Sir, it's going to contribute to the economic growth.
No, again, see, that's where the perspective is important. The cost of we are talking about aviation industry. That is, industry means, unfortunately, what we mean is people who have put their money into it. Okay. For a pilot, if his or her salary goes up, yeah. For a pilot, if his or her salary goes up, he or she will be happy. So it's strength. It is good actually. But then we are talking from the industry. If the industry has to pay more to get a pilot, that's what we are talking about. As far as industry is concerned, if it has to shell out more money for the fuel, more money for the labor, is it going to be a strength? What did you say? Is it going to be an opportunity? Is my question. How would the industry see it?
No, so that case it would be threat to the industry.
It should be seen as a threat. Yeah, it should be seen as a threat. But then here we can sort of debate whether it can be classified as a threat or a weakness. It is adverse for sure. So it will be either a threat or a weakness. No, it is probably sorry more appropriate to put it as a weakness, because why are the costs high? Because the fuel is costly. Now the cost for fuel cost is external, but on a day-to-day basis we need to use fuel, a lot of fuel. We have to deal with lower efficiencies of operation, lower thermal efficiencies of the engine, and we need to deal with high salaries of the staff. These are all factors which are internal. Now, what cost them? Probably, I mean, say fuel cost, the international crude oil, this one, etc. The origin of them will be external, but the fact that we need to spend a lot of money for getting fuel, and we need a lot of fuel, etc., are internal. So I would think that it can probably fit more in weakness, because it's a part of the day-to-day operation. Okay, but that is debatable. I'll leave this one the margin for considering it as a threat also, because many of the factors that contribute to the high cost of operation are external. Again, cross-country travel by students. Which team, by the way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, third. This is to team 3. Cross-country travel by students like you. Now everybody wants to do their MS abroad, and I guess that number is increasing year by year. So obviously there are a lot of students who are traveling, making use of it's an opportunity, because if there is an increase in this one, it means that for companies which are operating in India, as well as those who are Indian aviation companies which are offering international flights, they are gradually having a larger customer base, specifically from this sector alone. So if there are larger number of students, and it's an opportunity which the companies can tap. They can identify which are the routes and which are the parts of the year when students travel, and try to have their schedules having more flights in those routes and in those times. So it's an opportunity that they can probably capture. I guess we'll stop with one more. Group 4, identified requirement for having an aviation. An aviation hub between Dubai and Singapore has long been identified, and we have some role in India actually on that. Dubai being on the west, Singapore being on the east, and both are economically, industrially highly advanced cities. Singapore is a city nation, whatever we call it. So there's a lot of travel. There's a lot of travel between Dubai and Singapore, and the distance is quite large, and India sort of falls in between, and it is an appropriate place to have an aviation hub where you can have intermediate stopovers, you can have MRO manufacturing hubs, you can have refueling stations, etc., etc. Where should we fit this from the perspective of Indian aviation industry? Group 4.
It's favorable. It's like a strength, sir. It'll start developing.
It's favorable.
Force.
It's favorable, but then,
Sir?
Sorry. Yeah, it's an identified requirement. So where do you put? I agree with that. I agree with you that it's favorable. Then, but do you actually call it as a strength or an opportunity?
Okay, it'll be an opportunity, sir.
It's an opportunity. The requirement is sort of external, and it's an identified requirement. So Indian aviation industry can step into it, and I guess some activities are already going in that direction. Anyway, so that can be identified as an opportunity. I guess I guess I had 2 more rounds, so I'll just leave that in the introduction. You can look at the English-speaking stuff, for example. Anybody can answer. See, the value of English speaking staff, we realize that when we go out, say like to countries like Japan or China or European countries, even France, Germany, etc., where you require specific training to be given by the aviation companies to their staff if they have to speak English. Whereas in India, any graduate can reasonably handle English reasonably well, can speak fluently, can communicate effectively in English. So from the perspective of the aviation industry, particularly since it has to handle people who speak different languages and or have different mother tongues, but are trained or are fluent in English. So anybody can answer this? India has large number of English speakers, or rather, Indian aviation industry inherently has a lot of staff who can speak English conveniently, conversantly. So where do you fit that? It's a strength, obviously. So it's a strength which can be made for made use for the growth of the business. Okay, I guess I'll stop here. As I mentioned earlier, I cancel the afternoon session today, so we'll meet on Monday morning. I would request all the 4 teams to be ready with their presentations. Okay, thank you. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.